your schools will be really receptive to hearing from you and talking through you. That's what they want too, because it's the same notion. For them, a parent that is involved and concerned and connected can make the transition for those children that are struggling so much easier, which takes the burden off the teacher. The teachers want to get to curriculum and instruction. They don't want to spend their time on classroom management and working through these social and emotional issues. Where adults can really help teachers and their students is preparing them for that. So spend just a little bit of time up front and it will pay off.
As one school year winds down, another is just around the corner. For students moving from preschool to kindergarten and from kindergarten to first grade, the move often creates uncertainty and anxiety. However, the skills they've learned, both social and behavioral, will make the transition into a new grade, school, or community easier for the students and parents. One thing parents can do to help is to continue to recognize and celebrate their child's intellectual, physical, emotional, and social growth, especially for significant milestones. On today's Sound Living, providing support as children transition through the educational system. Sound Living is a weekly public affairs program produced by Research and Extension at Kansas State University. I'm Jeff Wichman. A big milestone for children is that transition from preschool to kindergarten and from kindergarten to first grade. At this stage of their development, K-State Research and Extension Child Development Specialist Bradford Wiles says they've learned social skills and the classroom behavior component of education. And now they're ready for the next step in the educational transition process, learning to focus on academics.
Absolutely. So very recently, there's been this sort of talk of soft skills, calling those things soft skills. Well, what we like to really say is soft skills are life skills. Those are the things that you learn at a very young age that you apply throughout your lifespan. And you know people that are very good at these things. And the more that we can develop those skills, the more that we can hone them and then also make up for deficits in some children who might struggle in those situations, the better off they will be in their learning environments and the better off their peers will be in their learning environment. So, we really need to sort of think about both the individual student as well as the larger classroom, right? You're really only as strong as the weakest student, if you get my meaning. If we can really focus on building everybody up and having everybody have some skills to pay attention and listen, then all the students can thrive within that context.
The movement, I'm assuming, from preschool to kindergarten is maybe not quite as big a gap as the jump from kindergarten to first grade?
Yeah, it really depends on the context. Some kindergartens are much more like a school system environment where students are expected to sit in a chair and write and read and those kinds of things. But others are much more like sort of graduate school for preschool, if you get my meaning there, that it's a little bit more of a continuation. It really does depend on the kind of preschool from which a student came to which kindergarten, and then also the kind of kindergarten that a student came from to first grade. As a rule, though, the transition from kindergarten to first grade is a little bit bigger. You're looking at a little bit more rigor, a little bit more requirement for attention and rules when you get into first grade. Not to say that those don't exist in kindergarten, but there's still a little bit more flexibility there. And so each of them has their own challenges. We know that for children, transitions are really, really salient and really important for them as they move through their development. And so any of these milestones where, for example, you leave preschool and go to a different kindergarten, that's a big step. New peers, new adults, new location, new context, and frankly, new rules that can really have an influence on children. And so we want to make sure that we prepare them for those transitions and also, as adults, prepare ourselves for those transitions because they are difficult for us as well. There's always this sort of my baby's growing up component, and make no mistake, that is not a gender-based issue. That happens with dads and moms. And then, of course, there's always the relationship of the parent and the teacher, and there's always comparisons. So if you have a really good relationship with your child's preschool teacher, it might be hard to transition that for you to the child's kindergarten teacher, or vice versa. If you had a really bad experience with your child's preschool teacher, to then go to kindergarten and be able to operate from a place of hope as opposed to more of a negative type of view of things. And similarly for kindergarten to first grade.
So there's kind of this feeling of excitement and anxiousness at the same time?
A lot of excitement and a lot of apprehension. Yeah. It's unknown, particularly if it's your first child. So one of the things for adults is, as more children go through that process, we get more savvy. Keep in mind, though, of course, that for each individual child, they don't have that benefit. It's their lived experience and only their experience. And so while multiple kids can help adults with that transition, each child will experience that apprehension, that anxiety. But yeah, there's a lot of excitement. And keep in mind, too, that young children are very resilient. They tend to be able to adapt very well. They tend to be able to fit in and move through different transitions. But we as adults need to be aware of those children and those circumstances where it's not easy. And they can coincide with a number of different milestones. So oftentimes there are requirements for getting into kindergarten that young children might be struggling with. Toilet training is one, numeracy and literacy are some others. And so, you have these sort of competing demands that can manifest themselves in that entire transition period.
What can we as parents do then to make this process a little smoother, a little easier?
The first and most important avenue is to connect with the school before your child goes. When I say connect, I don't mean just enroll. I mean sit with the teacher, talk about your child with the teacher, talk about your child with the administration, go through and talk about what the expectations are for parent involvement. We know so much about how beneficial parent involvement in children's education is across their lifespan. So it's really important for adults to have an understanding of what their commitment is, what the boundaries are for them as well. We know that it's really beneficial, but we also know that we don't want a parent in the classroom every day, the same parent looking after their child, right? That's not beneficial for anyone. And so really connecting with them, talking about your child, talking with them about what their goals are, how they teach, particularly when it comes to discipline. So one of the things that's really, really crucial is making sure that what they do in school and what you do at home have a similar approach. We call this home and school congruency, and it's really important so that children get the same messages at home and at school. You don't want children being able to eat M&Ms for dinner or lunch at home and then go into school and only be able to have healthy snacks. Ideally, we would want M&Ms for everyone. I'm just kidding. No, ideally, we would want healthy meals across the board, right? So that can help, particularly with the adult anxiety. But then the second thing that you can do is talk with your child about expectations. We talk about scaffolding learning all the time, and it's this process of being able to help children understand what's happening and what's to come. And part of that is setting the stage. And so you can talk with your child about what's to come, what it's going to look like, how it's going to feel, talking with them about they will probably feel anxious, that they might get angry, they might get sad, and that's okay. And to talk to me, meaning the adult or their teacher or their siblings about those feelings can really help them process that transition. And that's what we want.
Do we run the risk, though, of maybe getting them more scared or anxious than they need to be if we delve more on negative things as opposed to positive things?
You definitely do run that risk. And so you want to balance those things. You want to talk, obviously, about all the opportunities, how exciting it'll be, the ability to make new friends. But yeah, you want to balance the negatives with a lot of the positives, right? And children eat these things up, right? That there's going to be a new teacher who's going to teach you all kinds of neat things. You're going to be a little bit older, so you're going to be able to do a lot of things that you couldn't do when you were younger. You're going to have an entire school that you can run around in instead of just your preschool, right? This is going to be a big place that you can have so much fun in. And it's really how we frame those things that are how children are going to interpret them. We don't want to lie to them. We don't want to ever gloss over the difficulties, but we also want to bring all those positives. And there are, 1,000 positives whenever we talk about school and the things that children can learn and do.
I think what I'm hearing you say is do some legwork ahead of time, especially in terms of getting to know the teachers, getting to know the school, and then just kind of ease through the summer. And maybe as you get a little bit closer to that date, start talking it up a little bit more.
You said it. That's exactly right. Do your work up front. The more time you spend preparing for those transitions, the less time you will spend trying to soothe your child who's having a hard time. And your schools will be really receptive to hearing from you and talking through you. That's what they want too, because it's the same notion. For them, a parent that is involved and concerned and connected can make the transition for those children that are struggling so much easier, which takes the burden off the teacher, right? The teachers want to get to curriculum and instruction. They don't want to spend their time on classroom management and working through these social and emotional issues. Where adults can really help teachers and their students is preparing them for that. So spend just a little bit of time up front and it will pay off. And it pays off for you, it pays off for your teacher, and it pays off for your child.
Are there some other things we should do this summer maybe to help prepare the students as well?
Always. So we know that in America, which is one of the few countries that doesn't have year-round schooling anymore, that there's a slide, they call it the summer slide. And so certainly you want to continue whatever the child was working on in April and May. So if it was working on numbers or their alphabets or learning to read small words or even learning to read big words, you want to continue that through the summer. And you want to always give opportunities. One of the best places to do that is the library. And if you don't have a local library, there are all kinds of online tools for you. All you need to do is type in Stop Summer Slide, and there will be thousands of opportunities. I would highly recommend for anyone who's going to do that, search for libraries or anything that is .gov or .edu. I would stay away from .coms. They tend to want you to pay for things, and you don't need to do that. This information is out there and is free for anyone who wants it. Your schools often will have summer programming that can help with that transition as well. So again, this idea of reaching out to the school and just talking with them about what opportunities there are. I have long said that it would take a long, long time to exhaust all of the opportunities that are available to families through a public school system.
And go ahead and celebrate those milestones and look forward to those transitions.
Yeah, you want to celebrate them. One of the things that I've grappled with, of course, are the, quote, graduations, end quote, from first grade to second grade. Those milestones are important, and you want to take pictures of that, but the full ceremony and the cap and gown is a little bit much for that. From kindergarten to first grade, yeah, that's a huge one, and you want your child to be excited. You want them to be able to celebrate that transition. Again, it's helping them understand how important these things are, and it provides them with some context of what this means. It's really important to celebrate those big milestones, and those intermediate ones you want to recognize, but you also want to make sure that that's an expectation as well. We expect our children to go from first to second grade and from second to third and so on. When they get to middle school and they're going to graduate from there, yeah, great. Have a party. Embrace that. That's a great thing. But we want to make sure that we have reasonable expectations as well, and that we're not just sort of rewarding those things that are, frankly, expected. And that's not to say that we don't celebrate those accomplishments, but there's a difference between celebrating them and really blowing them out of proportion.
That's K-State Research and Extension Child Development Specialist Bradford Wiles. More information about preparing children for preschool and kindergarten is available at county and district extension offices and on the extension website, www.ksre.ksu.edu. Sound Living is a weekly public affairs program produced by Research and Extension at Kansas State University. I'm Jeff Wichman, and this is the K-State Radio Network.